Taking school home. Plus, on Good Vibes tonight, we bring you the story of a lady who's helping pupils catch up with studies digitally amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Sporting the Star, and we have a unique story of a former athlete who has managed to overcome the jinx of squalor that plagues many athletes after retirement. A very warm welcome on TV47 Weekend. My name is Mumbi Chege. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Anne Wairimo. Now, religious leaders under the Kenya Council of Church Alliances and Ministries have offered to initiate national reconciliation strategy to restore unity in the country in ensuing political divisions in the country. The leaders have also called on President Uhuru Kenyatta to declare whether or not COVID-19 restrictions should be lifted as politicians organize political rallies amidst the containment measures.
Speaking in Nairobi earlier today, the church leaders drawn from different denominations have called on politicians to put on hold political rallies until such a time when the country will be declared COVID-19 free. Or as well, the president announces the lifting of all the restriction measures currently on paper.
Miezi sita tumemaliza tukijificha. Tumeambiwa kaa nyumbani. Tumeambiwa kwamba usisalimiane. Tumeambiwa usifanye hiki. Hivi sasa wanasiasa wote wamerudi uwanjani na miaka miwili ingali bado. Tunasema kwamba wanasiasa msimamishe siasa sasa. Wananchi wanaumia.
The leaders too want President Uhuru Kenyatta to initiate a national reconciliation strategy owing to the cracks in government and the sharp divisions. The leaders have said the insightful and insulting remarks coming from a section of leaders are sprouting from the political divisions, and the hatred will soon be entrenched amongst Kenyans if the trend is not rectified.
Tuliona wakisimama pamoja, tuliona wakitana ndugu, tuliona kwamba wakifaa hata nguo ambao zinafanana. Sasa hivi sio hivyo. Na sisi kama viongozi wa kanisa kwa hakika hii inatuumiza sana. Tunaomba ya kwamba kama vile walifanya handshake na mmoja mwingine, pawe na handshake kwa wote waje pamoja.
We wish to condemn in the strongest terms possible the irresponsible and unfortunate remarks made by a cross-section of political leaders directed to our president and the presidency.
The church leaders have expressed concerns over the state of corruption in the country, with public officers implicated in corruption cases day in, day out. They want the judiciary to expedite these cases, have them resolved, and money stolen from public coffers returned.
We urge the relevant agencies to continue with the fight against theft of public resources without any regard to the political affiliation or social status of the culprits. We are all Kenyans, and all of us must be brought to book if found culpable.
At the same time, a group of businesswomen in Nairobi carried out peaceful demonstrations, calling out politicians disparaging women and throwing diabolical remarks that would threaten the peaceful coexistence among communities.
Hatutaki kujua unachagua nani ama we siasa yako ni gani, lakini heshima ibaki, heshima ya mama. Hakuna mwenye alichagua kwenye atazaliwa.
The two groups have called on Kenyans to resist any attempts to be divided on grounds of hate and tribal lines. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Mwangi Maina, for that report. Now, Kapseret Member of Parliament Oscar Sudi has insisted that no one will silence him from speaking about issues affecting Kenyans. His statement comes after a war of words from across the political divide that has put Deputy President William Ruto on the spot, with the 2022 campaigns gaining momentum amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, politicians from Mukambani allied to DP Ruto have vowed to back him in the 2022 general elections. Kapseret Member of Parliament Oscar Sudi led a demonstration in Eldoret town, vowing that he'll be relentless in his push for an equal society. Sudi also blamed the Jubilee administration for the theft of COVID-19 funds.
Tunataka tuambie tu wale wanadanganya kuzungusha wamama huko na fitina, sisi hatutaki. Ile discussion ya juzi yangu na ngeno, rais alimaliza jana. Hata yeye alisema na sasa tulifungia jana. Sasa imekuwa iko na hiyo imekaa hiyo. Tunataka tuambie hawa na tunawapatia kwa sababu investigation inafanya kazi yao. Hii maneno ya KEMSA hamwezi mkazima. Maneno ya KEMSA tutarudia mpaka siku ile ukweli itapatikana ya KEMSA. Mlikuwa mnasemanga William Ruto ni mwizi. Sasa nani amemshikia wizi? Nani amemshikia wizi? Hii maneno ya KEMSA hii na hiyo Ministry of Health iko na maneno mingi sana.
While echoing Sudi's sentiments, a section of Ukambani leaders allied to DP William Ruto have condemned those demanding for Ruto's apology over Sudi's and Johanna Ngeno's remarks on Mama Ngina and the president, saying those are their own opinions.
Ngeno ni mjumbe ambaye amechaguliwa na watu. He is over 18 years, ako na miaka 18 and above. Ako na mind of his own. Why should the deputy president apologize on behalf of a man ambaye ako na bibi na ako na watoto?
Kitui East Member of Parliament Nimrod Mbai terming the Jubilee government as selfish and ungrateful to DP Ruto.
Kwamba serikali ambayo Ruto alitafuta ODM imewekwa ndani. Na watu wote wameamua kunyanyasa William Ruto. Kwa sababu Mungu ndiye amechagua William Ruto kuwa rais. Hakuna unyanyasaji ambaye itazuia Ruto.
Mkiapisha utaapisha. Sio ni preparation. Kwa hivyo sioni bila anasema watu ameungana na Uhuru kuleta watu pamoja. Hiyo ni uongo yote.
Despite the lower eastern region being a Wiper stronghold, the leaders have insisted that DP Ruto is their presidential candidate of choice. They were speaking during a meeting at former Machakos Senator Johnson Muthama's home in Machakos County. Still on Deputy President William Ruto, now he said that he will not stop supporting religious organizations and youth empowerment activities. Ruto said his faith comes first before politicians' titles, urging those who were opposed to what he was doing in churches with Muslims, youth and women empowering programs to simply look for something else to do for themselves. Now addressing church leaders from Nyamira County, who called on him at his Sugoi home in Uasin Gishu County today. The Deputy President said he's not ashamed of his good and unapologetic of his faith. He said leaders were elected, among others, to empower the people, noting that it's through such programs they can improve their livelihoods.
Munalalamika mkishindwa, munalalamika mkiwa serikali, munalalamika mkiwa everywhere. Ninyi ni mashujaa kweli wa malalamiko. Mimi nimeinuliwa na Mungu ili niweze kuinua watu wengine. Mimi nimeinuliwa na Mungu ili niweze kusaidia na kufanya kazi na kanisa. Na mimi sirudi nyuma. Kwa hivyo kama mnalalamika, jipangeni vizuri kwa sababu mnalalamika siku mingi.
And former Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri has taken issue with President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto for abandoning their pledge to keep peace when the duo joined hands to seek the presidency in 2013. Kiunjuri has blamed the rising political temperature on failure of the two principals to put their houses in order. And as Eli Logova reports, calls for peace continue to take center stage as leaders appeal for decency in politics.
With less than 2 years to the general elections, politics seems to be taking shape as politicians continue to align themselves in preparations for 2022. Former Agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri has rubbished claims of Mount Kenya region determining the fate of the next president after Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure ends in 2022. Kiunjuri now says the region is divided and there is a need for unity.
Mahali tumefika, nyinyi watu ya Mount Kenya mmekuwa swing vote kwa sababu moja. Raila amefuruta pande moja, William Ruto amefuruta pande ile ingine. You are no longer the 6 million vote. Raila anajua atanyakua milioni 2, Ruto atanyakua milioni 4. Why would they be interested with your vote? That is where we are heading. Don't be proud again to be a Kikuyu or Mumeru or Ebu. Mumetawanyikana. Better the rulers of this country.
NC party leader Musalia Mudavadi has called for decency in politics, referring to the recent remarks by DP William Ruto's allies Johanna Ngeno and Oscar Sudi. Mudavadi has asked politicians to shun divisive politics and concentrate on uniting Kenyans.
Tukatae katakata. Wewe kama unataka uturudishe kwa siasa duni ya kuleta tension ya kikabila, wewe ni mugoroki.
Siwezi taka turudi pahali ambapo watu watauana tena. Na sisi viongozi ni midomo yetu, tutaangalia vizuri, tuchunge na tusilete wazazi katika siasa.
Mudavadi's sentiments coming as calls for a coalition with DP Ruto continue to be tossed at him.
Mimi nikekuomba kwa sababu mimi nikipima hivi kwa ratiri naona Kenya inakuhitaji. Na kwa sababu Kenya inakuhitaji, tafadhali jipange na kwenye kura iko. Tunaongea na hawa Savura, ameongea kizungu mingi, lakini tukiongea na yeye haswa anajua, na mimi naongea ukweli. Hawa watu ni mahasera, mheshimiwa Mudavadi. Kwa hivyo sikana na huyo jamaa. Na mkisikana na yeye ujue Tete Nyoro atakuwa kampeni wenu number 1 kama vile yako saa hii.
Meanwhile, a section of DP Ruto's allies have accused police officers led by IG Hilary Mutyambai of being used by selfish politicians to settle their political scores against Ruto supporters. Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei has urged the police service to keep off politics.
To encourage the National Cohesion and Integrated Commission and the National Police Service to desist from being used to fight political wars. I think we respect our police service, we respect the NCIC. If they want to ensure bring peace and tranquility across the country, the NCIC, the DCI, the police service must desist themselves from becoming, and even the National Provisional Administration must desist themselves from participating.
Cherargei's sentiments come a day after DP Ruto slammed the IG of police Hilary Mutyambai of being used to punish his supporters. Eli Logova, TV47.
Thank you, Ellie, for that report. Now, the Senate is expected to resume the revenue sharing talks next week. Already, the counties are at verge of closing some devolved units for lack of funds. This comes as Senate is expected to deliberate on amending Division of Revenue Sharing Bill and Public Finance Management Act to have counties get at least 50% of the shareable revenue.
For the third month and still counting, the counties are yet to receive their budgets, governors decrying lack of funds and also threatening to shut down come 17th this month following a stalemate over the formula to be used to share 316.5 billion shillings to the 47 counties. Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei, and who is a member of the ad hoc committee tasked to unlock the stalemate, says Senate is not to blame entirely for the counties not getting their monies, since Treasury has its role to play.
The Minister in charge of National Treasury has been well advised by the Supreme Court and the Public Finance Management Act. Even as we talk, even if Senate was to say has been a stumbling block in the release of this financial year funds, why has the National Treasury not released to some counties the June that was the end of the previous financial year? So there is a double speak, and I think the National Treasury should be well advised that they are within the law to release 50% of the allocation. But that resolution will take it on Tuesday and ensure it is passed. When after that we are done, we go back to our revenue formula.
Further, Cherargei says come next week, Tuesday, they will present a motion on the amendment to the Division of Revenue Act, which will see counties get at least 50% of their shareable revenue to cushion the devolved units.
I want to confirm that on Tuesday we shall be moving an amendment, and we have requested to move an amendment on the Division of Revenue Act in consultation with the National Assembly, as provided for by Public Finance Management Act and reference number 3 of 2019 of the Supreme Court decision, to pass a resolution as a Senate and the National Assembly and do an amendment to allow counties to access 50% of their previous allocation on the financial years. And I want to say as a Senate, we are in that concurrence, and it is within the law when we have such stalemate, especially on the issues of revenue. And that one will allow time, senators to ventilate on the matter of revenue of allocation, formula without pressure.
Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemia calling upon Senate to fast-track the revenue sharing process since counties are totally disenfranchised by the ongoing stalemate.
Fast-track the formula. If you could fast-track that formula for revenue, the sharing, we'll be very happy, Mr. Chairman, so that development can continue back in the counties.
The 12-member bipartisan committee tasked in unlocking the revenue sharing stalemate is expected to meet both House leadership to deliberate the way forward in unlocking the standoff. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Nairobi.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that report. Many thanks for staying with us here on TV47 Weekend. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with more in just a moment, including good vibes. Don't go away. Welcome back to TV47 Weekend. Now, Chief Justice David Maraga has directed judges and magistrates in Narok County to be tough when dealing with cases involving early marriages, FGM and defilement in order to protect the girl child. Speaking in Narok when opening the new Narok Law Courts, Maraga noted the psychological trauma on the victims after the ordeal, saying it's unfortunate that most of the girls never get justice. Maraga was accompanied by Narok Governor Samuel Tunai and Senator Ledama Olekina.
I want to assure you that we will ourselves deal with those cases as they are supposed to be dealt with, and firmly and expeditiously, so that everybody gets to know that they can't get away with those kind of offenses. We want to build a society where our children live without fear, and we are able to harness their talents instead of getting this kind of side issues. So please, let's work together. The judicial officers who are here, judges and magistrates, you have heard the sentiments of the leaders from this area. Let us deal with those cases firmly.
Generally, our girls are in endangered species in this county. That is actually the reality. And with COVID-19, I said the other time, and the chair is also here, right now we have more than 5,000 young girls who have been made pregnant from March, because the children are at home, they are not going to school, and as I say, they are in endangered species. We need this court to ensure that severe punishment is administered on the culprit.
Now, tomorrow, 12th September, will mark exactly 1 year since the signing of the peace deal between the Turkana West Pokot communities in Kenya and the Karamojong community in Uganda. Now, the peace deal was facilitated by the United Nations and has so far paid dividends, with the previously two warring communities giving up their arms and instead working together to ensure sustainable peace in the decades to come.
The United Nations peace-initiated deal happened in Moroto, Uganda at Naitakwae grounds. The communities dressed in traditional regalia and adorning the Kenya and Uganda flags danced in joyous celebration as a sign to welcome the peace deal. The deal was witnessed by President Uhuru Kenyatta and his Ugandan counterpart Yoweri Museveni, among other dignitaries.
Tunataka tuhakikishe ya kwamba tumeondoa hii mipaka ambayo sio yetu.
Amani, maji. Mnaona yameanza kuleta matunda. Wakati mlikubali kurudisha bunduki, watu wamezaa watoto wamekuwa.
The MOU was signed by Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Devolution Eugene Wamalwa and Uganda's Minister for Karamoja Affairs John Byabagambi, and so far it has paid dividends. The previously two warring communities have given up their arms and are now working together to ensure sustainable peace in the decades to come. The United Nations Residence Coordinator said the international body has already seen opportunities of development. Communities can now access water and resources. He says the success of the Africa Free Trade Area will happen when borders are stable.
I think very importantly, we've seen a tone down of violence in those areas, which used to see a lot of localized conflict. We've seen those things come. The second, we've already seen, opportunities of development has already started. Access to water, access to more resources. The initial seed funding has made it happen. So we are already seeing that in a span of 1 year.
The United Nations Development Programme, which has been a key financier to the deal, says they have supported interventions that have eliminated illegal flow of small arms and light weapons in the border areas, by strengthening the peace actors' capacities.
Both on the Kenya side as well as on the Uganda side, UNDP has actually invested about $1 million of its own resources for each of the countries to actually implement some of these catalytic interventions that give life to this MOU, so that we ensure that what has been a political framework can very quickly translate into meaningful activities on the ground.
Already, the Ministry of Devolution is looking forward to commemorating the peace deal by commissioning 2 projects. One in Turkana County, the Oram Water Project, which was supported by UNDP, and another one which was done in West Pokot County in Lasara.
The main source of conflict is sometimes when the pastoralists cross over to the neighboring countries, is because they are looking for pastures. They're looking for water. So His Excellency the President directed that we put some money for the development of big dams.
Senate Majority Leader Professor Samuel Pogisio and CS for Petroleum and Mining John Munyes says the peace deal has benefited the communities along the border in a great way.
It's been so peaceful. From around that time on, we are now able to walk the distances without any fear. The communities have settled pretty much. There is hardly any disturbance.
The peace accord has also opened the infrastructure that was poor in that region. The roads, the Moroto Road, Moroto Lodo Road, the Kotido Kakuma Road, and many other smaller roads have been opened.
Speaking ahead of the commemoration, the devolution CS Eugene Wamalwa says the peace deals between communities living in the border started in 2015 between Kenya and Ethiopia, and so far the communities are living together in harmony. Wamalwa further says culture can be used as a tool of integration among communities living in the larger East Africa communities.
We do not want to stop there. We want to look at another MOU with South Sudan, so that apart from the Karamoja cluster and apart from the Ethiopian-Kenyan MOU, we want to see another MOU now bringing together South Sudan as well as Kenya and the communities living along our borders.
Andrin Kieni for TV 47.
Now, the Rwandan cabinet has allowed resumption of private transport to and from Rusizi with strict adherence to COVID-19 prevention measures. Now, the cabinet has also reviewed the COVID-19 curfew hours. The dusk to dawn curfew will now start at 9 p.m. through to 5 a.m. Diana Iriza is here to give us more details on how Rwanda is dealing with the pandemic.
Hello there, greetings to you all from Kigali, Rwanda. So here's an update on the COVID-19 status here in the country. As it is known, every month there's at least 2 cabinet meetings held by cabinet members chaired by the president of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame. So last night another cabinet meeting was held to discuss on the resolutions and how Rwandans can cope with this pandemic. And some changes were made, and some of these changes include the curfew hours. The last 2 weeks were quite challenging as the curfew hour was 7 p.m. So all movements were prohibited between 7 p.m. till 5 a.m. So from now onwards, movements are prohibited between 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. So besides that, we have the Rusizi district. This district was under maximum lockdown for 6 months as it had very high COVID-19 cases. However, a communique was released last night after the cabinet meeting saying that the transportation to this district has now been allowed. The lockdown has been lifted. However, public transportation is still being prohibited. Private transportation, on the other hand, is still being allowed as long as private transporters or people traveling to this district privately can still follow all the COVID-19 measures and restrictions. So generally, COVID-19 new cases in Rwanda have relatively slowed down since September compared to the second half of August. On Thursday, September 10th, the total number of confirmed cases increased to 4,400 479. And the new cases on this day were 19, bringing the total active cases to 2,105.
Thank you for that report, Diana, from Rwanda on COVID-19. Now, dangerously rising River Nile floodwaters have so far affected more than 500,000 people, destroyed more than 100,000 homes, and left at least 99 people dead. Now, the floods are also threatening to swamp an ancient archaeological site in Sudan after some of the highest ever river levels TV47 weekend. Let's take another short break, but remember, Friday means good vibes. Our reporters and my colleagues will be joining me shortly to discuss some of the positive stories that have been happening this week. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us here on TV47 Weekend. And now it's that time of the night, time for Good Vibes. And joining me now are our reporters, David Mudoka and Dennis Otieno. Good to have you guys on Good Vibes tonight. Dennis, welcome, this being your first time. Let's start with you, Mudoka. What have you been up to? What is your story all about? I mean, we could all use some positivity during these COVID-19 times.
Well, definitely, Mumbi, it feels good to be on Good Vibes again on this very good Friday night. So this week, I embarked on an education-related story. We both know that schools have for quite some time been closed following the government issuing a directive to have schools closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so as to arrest a further and a faster spread of the virus. And that has rendered most students, up to the tune of 1 million students in the country, whichever grade from primary school to secondary school, out of school for quite a while. And this means that these students have not been engaged for more than 4 or 5 months now with books. And that is a very, warning sign, especially for parents and for students. But now I met this Kibra resident, her name is Caroline, who's taken it upon herself to ensure that students within Kibra, one of, Kenya's informal settlements and, what we call Kenya's and the world's biggest slums, she's made sure that these students, as many as she could be able to reach out to, engaged with digital learning. Some, as young as 8 years old, and it's quite an amazing story. She leases out computers to these students at just 50 shillings a day, and it's quite a fascinating and heroic thing that she's been able to do. Mumbi,
absolutely.
Take it away.
Now, the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic in March led to the closure of schools in the country as students were thrown in a limbo, their academic futures uncertain. But a number of Kenyans have taken it upon themselves to ensure that school-going children continue to engage in academic activities. With the reopening of schools unclear, such is the case with Kibra resident Caroline Lucinda, who is a private school teacher who leases computers to parents and children in Kibra for just 50 shillings a day in the wake of digital learning in the country.
Such have been common scenes in the past few months following the nationwide closure of schools due to the coronavirus. Slums, this playing ground has been their classroom for the past few months, and the only assignments that have been up for grabs.
And we apologize for that technical hitch on that particular story by David Mudoka. It's being rectified, and we'll be bringing it to you in just a moment once it's rectified. Now, let's look at the other story. It's been done by Calvin Chitwa, Matters Sports. And here with us is Dennis Otieno to tell us more about the story. Dennis?
Well, thank you, Mumbi. Now, Calvin Chitwa did a very interesting piece about a sports personality who is actually a former athlete. Now, this athlete goes by the name of Christopher Cheboibosh, rather. Now, Cheboibosh represented the country in the New York Marathon and the Boston Marathon. He was the winner back in the day, the days of his glory. Now, as we've had it, severally and previously, we've had a lot of sports personalities getting into the limelight, and soon after their retirement, they get to live a very dilapidated kind of a lifestyle. So Christopher Cheboibo had a different kind of a narrative. Cheboibo did not want to get into that kind of a lifestyle, having to reflect from the humble background that he came from. As soon as he retired, he started getting into investments that would make sure that, he gets a smooth kind of a retirement, plan. He's also had a lot of, positive impacts towards his community, the community around him. And so Cheboibo keeps on, inspiring a lot of sports personalities who are still plying their trade right now. And, they do not know, the certain way to go when it comes to, life after retirement. And so that is basically what Cheboibo is doing, a very positive impact he's having.
All right, thank you so much, Dennis. Let's take that story.
The man from Elgeyo Marakwet County has done what is worth emulating by upcoming athletes as well giving back to the society.
Evans, first of all, you want some?
An athlete whose first race to win was in 1996 after routine exercise and determination and training in the cold weather of Elgeyo Marakwet. Christopher Cheboiboch is a resident of Kapchelal village, Emso Ward, Keyo North, an area where he believes his journey to success began. In 2002, Cheboiboch performed well in his first international races, earning his first millions that helped him start his investments.
We ran Boston. I remember Boston is one of the prestigious marathon in the whole world, as well as the artist races in the whole world again. I became number 2. My friend Rogers Rob was number 1. And that is when I got money, more than 5 million.
He says he could not misuse the money because the humble background he came from was constantly on his mind. Cheboiboch decided to venture into various businesses and agriculture.
See this farm, there is bananas. Hii mkunga ya ndizi ni 500. And again, tunakula kwa nyumbani. You see also this land we have sweet potatoes, we have carrots, we have a population of 440 pupils. And what we are planning to see is quality education. I like when I do something, I want to do something that will have an impact, that will change people's value.
He says his hard work in farming and running of the school that he established in Iten town also made him popular. That popularity also led him into leadership. The people of Emso Ward elected him as a member of County Assembly.
I must thank World Vision because they gave us a project worth 98 million, which now across this upper hanging valley, almost everybody has gotten this water.
He challenges athletes to remain focused, invest in sustainable projects, and strive to change society as a better way of living a happy life after retiring from athletics. Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
Thank you so much, Calvin Chitwa, for that report on Cheboiboch doing amazing, in investments and all that, despite everything that's going on amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's start with you, Dennis, being a part of the sports desk. I mean, you've done several stories regarding, our sportsmen and women who are going through a lot in deplorable conditions because there isn't a lot of sports activities going on currently. What's your view on that story?
I really like the piece done by Chitwa and, the inspiring story that Cheboiboch brings, to life. I remember a while back we had this Arsenal player, his name was George Weah. He went on to become the president of his country. And it's not because he was a famous, sports personality, but it was because of the things that he was doing for his community. Similar to what Cheboiboch is doing to the people of his community. Think about starting a school for kids around your place. I mean, that's a noble, a noble cause. And so Cheboiboch really, is one of the sports personalities, one of the very few sports personalities who have a very positive impact, in the country, as opposed to, a lot of other sports personalities that we've had. And they keep on complaining, we're out of funds, we're not getting as much support as we should be getting. But then again, you think, where is this support supposed to be coming from? Because while they were at their glory, while they were playing their trade, they were well sorted after. And so, how about their life after retirement? And that is exactly what Cheboiboch is doing. Apart from investing, giving back to the community. So it is very interesting. my urge to a lot of sports personalities out there is they should draw a lot of inspiration from the Cheboiboch story.
Right. Mudoka, I don't know what your opinion is, and I don't know what happens after, like you said, they are out of, that place, the glory, is all taken away. I don't know what happens. Is it that they are also not careful and when it comes to investing while doing these sports activities or while, in sports, Mudoka?
Mumbi, there are a lot of factors that maybe with time we might dig deeper into. But I'd just like to pick up from where Dennis Otieno left. That we've seen, they are no longer stories actually, right, where, famous footballers, famous wrestlers, famous athletes, wallow in misery few years, after, being the people that covered our headlines, covered, our front pages. They were the epitomes of their careers, role models actually, people, right, we looked up to. And then few years down the line, these are people who now live lives that are a complete shadow of, the kind of life they led back then. But Christopher's story is a story that, indeed tells us that there is light at the end of the tunnel. If we play our cards right, if you do, thinking ahead and, planning for your future is quite necessary. Because with sports, Mumbi, it takes you just a few years when you hit your prime to stay at that moment, because you depreciate with time, and it's just about thinking ahead. What do you do with yourself, and what do you do actually to the people surrounding you, Mumbi? Right, and also the narrative of what the government should do. The government, of course, should really do something in strengthening, for instance, the Ministry of Sports or the Department of Sports in the country. But it just goes to show that we don't always have to wait for the government to come and do something, or we should just go out of our way like Cheboiboch is doing, and actually go out there and make a difference like he's doing. So quite an amazing story there. Thank you so much, Calvin Chitwa, for that good vibes tonight. And yes, now let's take that story by Mudoka on the teacher who's leasing out computers in Kibra. Holy shit.
Such have been common scenes in the past few months following the nationwide closure of schools due to the coronavirus pandemic. And with the reopening of schools still uncertain, estates, parking lots, streets, playing grounds and pathways have often been thronged by tens of would-be school children. For this, in Karanja area, in the heart of the Kibra slums, this playing ground has been their classroom for the past few months, and the only assignments that have been up for grabs include these childhood games. But with the academic futures of these children seemingly blurry, and with the government blowing hot and cold on when to reopen schools, we meet Caroline Lusinde, a private school teacher in Kibra, who has taken the school at home in Kibra by providing digital learning platforms for students.
How old are you? I'm 7 years old.
I am 7 years old.
It is at Makina area where we find Marceline Sunday, a mother of two, deep in studies with her 8-year-old daughter Elizabeth Asai, a class 2 pupil. Elizabeth is among children who have subscribed to Caroline's digital learning program, where her mother pays 50 shillings for 24 hours for this computer, which is fully installed with primary and secondary school curriculum.
We'll be home soon.
From the look of things, mother and daughter are enjoying this English lesson as they take turns discussing a sentence into another. Elizabeth's mother narrates to us how, between March when schools were indefinitely closed and June when she finally got wind of Caroline's digital learning program, the situation was dire at home. Her firstborn daughter, who aspires to be a nurse someday, would join other plain children in the streets all day, amid reports that Kibra had been earmarked as one of COVID-19 hot zones at the time.
School. I'm in standard D2.
And with her thirst for education unrelenting, something had to give to quench the academic thirst. She terms Caroline's intervention as heaven sent.
Content yenye iko hapa hivi ni exactly kama ile yenye iko shule. Anasoma hapo hivyo and then anajibu hizo maswali. Sasa unaona ile muda alikuwa anakimbia nje anaenda kucheza, akimbia nje kwenda kucheza and then pia memory amejikumbusha zile vitu alikuwa amesahau. Anasoma hapa hivi anakumbuka, hata ukipata speech yake inaambatana na venye content yao inawafundisha hivyo.
Caroline tells us after schools were closed, the pinch of stalled academic activities was too heavy a burden to bear. It was time to put some old computers that had been gathering dust in the shelves into good use.
Kuna hizo machines zenye ziko na content, na hiyo content kuna yenye na download na kuna ingine na purchase na nunua. So yenye tuna purchase inakuja na vitabu zote kutoka grade 1 mpaka form 4. So kumaanisha kama mzazi ako na watoto wa primary mpaka hata wa secondary wote wanafaidika kutumia hizo machines.
She says she is in no mood to quit despite having her hands full as she aspires to reach as many people as she can.
Kibra, been literally home to hundreds of thousands of residents, has had its fair share of challenges, from water to electricity running out. But the burning desire of school-going children here to learn does not seem to run out. To achieve this, it has had to take the intervention of noble residents here to quench the thirst for education for these children. David Muthoka, TV47 at Kibra, Nairobi.
Thank you so much, Mulaka, for that report. And, you know, one thing the government has really been insisting about online learning or online education, something that a lot of institutions or schools have embraced and incorporated, you know, but kids in Kibra don't have access to this or even to computers. So quite amazing job there from this teacher, Mudoka.
You know, definitely, Mumbi, just picking up from where you left, you say, and indeed, this, you know, is in public domain. Kibra is not such a privileged society as other societies. And actually, even, you know, as the government intends, you know, to have children and especially students embrace online learning, it hasn't seemed to work so much in Kibra, basically because of the dynamics in the economics over there. You know, and it's interesting, you know, to see somebody give back to the society, well, not, you know, so free, but, you know, at a very low cost. This lady, you know, decided to, you know, she saw a number of computers, you know, sitting idle at her store. She, you know, added a little stock. She decided to, you know, lease out this stock to make sure that some who are students and others, you know, who are our neighbors and people, you know, not so privileged can have, you know, access and have, you know, a space at the same, you know, table as other kids from other areas, Mombi.
Quite amazing. Dennis, what's your view on that story?
Well, I can only imagine if there was a certain manifesto that actually came to happen of every kid having, you know, a laptop, a free laptop that was supposed to be given out by the government. If only it came to be, it would have been very beneficial to each and every, you know, student in the Kenyan nation. But when we focus on the story done by Mutoka, which is very, very interesting, also another very noble cause from, you know, a citizen, it is an impactful effort that the lady is doing to try and educate, you know, students. I'm thinking, you know, for a person to sit down and think that I need to assist, you know, students around my you know, my community, it's more of a calling. It's not something that she's doing, you know, for benefit. It's not something that she's saying, I'll give out or I'll give out my computers and then, you know, get 50 shillings. And I don't think it's all about the money. It's all about the noble cause that is in the ladies. So I think that is very, very interesting.
You know, you even mentioned that indeed Kibra is an area that often, and as I mentioned in the story, runs out of power, runs out of water, and that burning desire, especially by these children. A number whom we visited, you know, and they are busy on these computers. And you know, one specific child whom we talked to, the mother, is just 8 years old. Where are you, Mumbi, at 8 years old? Did you understand these computers and the technologies?
No, at our time, no.
And that desire to learn how to operate, because she was operating the machine by herself. She was able to, you know, juggle between one subject and the other.
So these kids are as well thirsty for education.
Absolutely, Mumbi.
Right.
Interesting.
Thank you so much for that report, Muthoka and Dennis, for that story. Yes, and I hope I'll be seeing you next week here on Good Vibes for more positive stories. We could use all use positivity right around right about now during this COVID-19 pandemic. Remember, you can also give us your feedback on Twitter, TV47KE, as well as Facebook, TV47 Kenya. Talk to us. Now let's take a short break. We'll be back with more sports news in just a moment.